Welcome back, everybody. This is Gavin Mehl. We got our friend Brett Banfe back on from the BSV Blockchain Association, and we're going to talk about the upcoming London Blockchain Association conference, which is going to be coming up next week. We're going to talk a little bit about the results of the S-Crypt Hackathon. Brett's going to mention a little bit about what's going on with that, and then also the developer conference coming up in London. And then lastly, he's going to talk a little bit briefly about the technical nuances about securing your private keys, with a wallet. So, Brett, how you doing, man? Welcome back.
Hey, thank you so much for having me back, Gavin. Great to be on.
Great to have you. So, where would why don't we just quickly touch base on the S-Crypt Hackathon? Because it sounds like that's something that we may want to table, you haven't quite gone through the judging on. And what's the status on the S-Crypt Hackathon results?
Yeah. So, want to thank everyone for their submissions. We're going through the submissions right now. A couple that I was excited about that I just wanted to highlight. There was, as you know, your good friend Xiaowei Liu puts on a regular S-Crypt Tech show on Thursdays, and one of the most recent ones that he had Stephen February on, who presented a zero knowledge proof for one sat ordinals. So really looking forward to that one. One of the things that I love about this and the ecosystem, the tight-knit, close ecosystem that we have here, is that we saw some, exemplary minds in blockchain space, such as Dr. Owen Vaughn from nChain, who, was really instrumental in working on some zero knowledge proofs on his own. Uh, Comment on that. So, as a young up and coming sort of developer working on his own project, kind of in his spare time and stuff, to get the accolades and the recognition from some of the most notable names in the industry, like Dr. Vaughn, someone who I have hold in the highest esteem. It's really special to see because we're all participating in this hackathon out of our love and out of our desire to bring utility to BSV blockchain. And, it's just really wonderful to see that spilling out into the broader conversations around blockchain development.
So it sounds like there's not a winner yet, and you're one of the judges, right? So you're narrowing down through the
Yeah,
projects.
exactly. Working with David Case and Jiawei Liu and myself, as well as Yi Qiang from Scrypt, all doing the judging right now, going through those submissions, reviewing them. We also had another really impressive one that I just want to highlight, which is came to us through, and again, these are all from different projects, but some of those different individual groups, but some of those groups have notable names or are connected to businesses within the ecosystem. And one of those projects came from a group, I want to say that they were connected with Project Babbage, and it was about high throughput compute on BSV blockchain. So this is something that I'm extremely excited about. Because if we just think about it for a second from a high level, we have computers, the personal computer, that was the revolution in technology. But then there's also the ability to have all of these computers working together. But the problem with these computers working together is that there's load management problems. How do you tell which computers to solve which parts of the computing problem? And but the ability to transform computing into a distributed model is really one of the things that I find the most fascinating. It's also one of the things that I understand maybe the least. So maybe that's another reason why I'm so excited about it, because it's a frontier that's out there. We know that there are these massive computers capable of all kinds of processing, even if we just look at an example like cloud computing, et cetera. But being able to manage the workload that's involved with distributing compute directly to the cloud or directly to distributed nodes, peer networks, and things like that, it has such monumental significance, especially with the ability to encrypt and decrypt data as you go, so that selective parties can have access to that information while there can still be distributed ability to compute. I find that extremely fascinating, and I think it's a use case that hasn't been explored enough in commercial blockchain technology.
Wow. So what can people expect on the winner for this conference? I mean, let's say we don't know who it's going to be, but when they do win, what can people expect, and are we going to do a follow-up when that happens, and if so, when?
Yeah, I would love to come back on the show, do a follow-up. Maybe we can invite Jiawei on as well and just go through the projects. Right now, voting is open. So if you are not a member of the BSV Discord, head over to discord.gg/BSV. And there's a channel there, Script, where Xiaowei Liu is always answering questions. Script, for those that aren't aware, is a high-level programming language that takes the ordinary TypeScript format, that domain-specific language that many developers are familiar with, and can actually compile that down into Bitcoin script, which is the very, very low level computing language that is processed when transactions are submitted to the network in terms of ensuring their validity. And that's why smart contracts have always been, a part of Bitcoin from the very beginning. And Xiaowei's project Script really makes that accessible to a wide demographic of developers. So highly recommend that you check that out at the BSV Discord. And also, you will get instructions there for how to vote for your favorite hackathon project.
Cool. All right, that sounds good, Brett. Excellent. So the hackathon is still ongoing, and we'll do a follow up on that. So London Blockchain Conference is starting up this next week. It looks like, and so you're probably flying in. What day do you arrive?
Yeah, I arrive on Sunday. I'm really excited to get there. It's an event that I look forward to every year, and I've been going to these since 2021, back when it was in Zurich.
Cool, man. Yeah, I've been the last two. This will be my third time. So Dubai, London, Zurich. Wow, that sounds amazing. So all right, what's this? What can people expect for this event? I mean, you mentioned the DevCon, or yeah, the DevCon. What did you have in mind, for this event coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. So, London Blockchain Conference is a 3-day event, and it spans the entire gambit of commercial application of blockchain technology. A lot of times it's referred to as just Web3, which takes the normal concept of being able to read and write data and information onto the internet, and really adds an additional layer. That's where the 3 comes in from Web3, which is the ability to own that information and to be able to use it to do things like, for example, to paywall certain information unless you have access to a membership token, things like that really take this interfacing that we're doing and brings it to the next level. It's also really useful for things such as, one of my favorite projects in the BSV ecosystem is a project called Tokenized, that looks at one of the problems
James
of.
Belding.
That's right, James Belding from Australia, and a pioneer, just someone who has, and we'll be able to meet him in London. One of the really advantages that we have of going to this conference once a year is that we have so many different influential and important figureheads and leaders from this space that can come in and participate in these ongoing developments and conversations about the best way to bridge that to the mainstream, economy
What
at large.
what is Tokenized doing?
Yeah, so Tokenized is looking at the ability for private equity markets to coordinate around actions that they need to take. So if we just look at the public equity markets, the amount of money that's involved in the private equity markets dwarfs the money in the public equity markets by a factor of somewhere around 20 to 1. So we're all familiar with the New York Stock Exchange and the Nasdaq, and these are really traditional, well-known public equity markets. There's many others out there as well. Those are just two of them. And we think of those as massive centers of financial activity and financial networks. Well, when you compare that with just private equity, and you consider the fact that the private equity is 20 times larger, the size of those public equity networks, what you see is that the opportunity for this types of cash flow and deals and these agreements, it's all contract based, it's all contract driven and delivered, But the problem is that unlike the public equity markets, which have, a sort of a central repository and a central body in which all of that data is coming through, and therefore there's able to be these very easy, simple standardization methods for how that data is transferred, accounted for, et cetera. In the public equity markets, oftentimes you're finding that that data is really, scattered throughout, and maybe one organization is using this type of software, another organization is using that type of software, and yet massive deals are being done that and is depending on all of this interspersed technology, none of which is really synced or talking to each other. So where tokenized is coming in is it's saying, let's be the data standard for the private equity markets in the same way that these stock exchanges create the data standards for the exchange of public equity.
Fascinating. That's fascinating, Brett. That's amazing. So it's an entire new way for the private equity markets to operate. It sounds like so. That's one of the key, people that people could meet. So, okay, the London Blockchain Conference. Back to that. So you're arriving on Sunday. What can people expect on this event? Who have not been there before.
Yeah. Well, for those that haven't been to one of these types of events, I really highly encourage you to look back just only around 2 months ago to the wonderful event that was put on by Script out in San Francisco, because that was a 2-day event, whereas the BSV DevCon is going to be a 1-day event. So we'll have to squish a lot more content into just that 1 day. But we're going to really be following the same exact format. We're bringing in leading figureheads, leading, you know, uh, blockchain developers, leading builders, and people that have information to share about the cutting edge ways to do that, and and encouraging them to have conversations to further and advance the scope of this technology, because of course a technology is really only as good as the impact that it can have on a community and a culture that embraces and adopts it. It can be the most fabulous technology in the world, and if no one picks it up and runs with it, it's not going to have the impact on the world that it is set up to have. So these types of events, these are opportunities where not only are we bringing in key figureheads, some of the companies who will be performing, we've already talked a little bit about. Project Babbage will be presenting, Gorilla Pool will be presenting, Handcash, a company that is very near and dear to my heart, and I'd love to maybe go into a little bit about what I'm excited about to hearing from them to present. Um, they're going to be portraying the cutting edge tools and technology that ordinary traditional developers, again, Script, another leading company that's going to be presenting, can pick up this technology and run with it, because we're seeing that it's really the innovation and the drive of the capital markets that is set to bring in and usher forth this new Web3 embrace. We're already seeing some really fantastic and fabulous news over the past 24 hours about the partnership with Smart Ledger, another company within that will be presenting at London Blockchain Conference, has just recently partnered with the founder of Fubu, a massive fashion brand, and bringing that founder on as their creative director. So we're seeing the appetite of these mainstream companies and we're seeing things similar with brands like Nike, brands like Walmart. They're just starting to realize the potential that's out there for this shift to this Web3 environment, and we're leaving a phase, sadly for some, because there's always like a heartfelt love for an era that it may be bygone, but we're leaving a phase where there's lack of clarity about what this technology can do, and seeing the high fees that are on other chains that maybe originally got some people excited about these types of projects, but then they had to realistically look at the numbers and say, well, can we do this on these competing chains, or is it is it just the facts that this is going to have to shift to a network that can scale? And that's the message that we're looking to deliver at the BSV blockchain, is that this is a technology that is capable of scaling with your innovation.
Mm. Okay, super, really good info. So, talk about the scaling, the London blockchain conference. Now, you had some. I just had a really good question here that you triggered me on that I wanted to bring up. It was okay. So this DevCon, right? It's going to be a developer conference at a specific day.
That's
It's
right.
only one day. So, what is the day? How does that
Yeah,
work?
so
And how
it's
to?
londonblockchain.net and /devcon. That is Monday, May 20th. I really encourage everyone that is out there listening, if you're going to be at London Blockchain Conference, definitely make sure that you arrive that day early. Join on the Monday event. We'll be hosting the event starting 8 a.m. and it will be in the Excel London building, which is where the main uh, where the main London Blockchain Conference will be held. It'll be running all day, all the way until roughly around 5 p.m. There will be, fantastic presentations. There will be whiteboarding sessions, everything that you've come to look forward to and love about all of the, really fabulous BSV meetups and get-togethers. Put onto a stage. If you aren't able to make it in person, don't worry, because there will be a live stream of that conference being broadcast to you. And then the nice part for those that are able to attend is there will be an after party that we're really looking forward to as well. That will be, just a few blocks down the road.
Nice. And so one of the things that about this DevCon that's really I wanted to just bring up that it could be an idea would be like, let's say I have a friend, he's doing a business where they're building, he doesn't know about BSV blockchain, or he thinks it's a scam. He read on Google, he thinks it was a scam. So I'm not trying to convince him. He doesn't want to look past that. So he's been working on building a blockchain company where they're tokenizing. He wants to tokenize like real estate and title transactions. And I'm not sure what blockchain he's using. I think maybe I don't know. I'm not going to name. So, but like an entrepreneur like that wants to build a business and isn't like the most technical person. Isn't this where these types of ideas can be born? Where like you get in the room with the right people, like David Case or somebody, or Xiaowei Lu, and they're like, "Here, how do we make this happen?" You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I get super inspired by going to these events and these conferences because of the technical understanding and deep knowledge of the, developer community that participates in these events. Yeah, you named a couple people, and you sort of take for granted sometimes, especially myself and yourself. We're not the most technical people. We know enough to be a little bit dangerous, but if we had to get down to brass tacks, we'd probably hand it off to someone else. So, but when you ask these questions and you think that you're getting ready to stump them with something, because and then you realize that not only have they thought of that, but they have like a 13-page paper on exactly how that gets solved, etc. And it's really, there's a famous saying that there's a very fine line between sufficiently developed and advanced technology and just magic. And you really feel that when you're at these types of events, because it is pure imagination. This type of stuff has never been done before. And there are remnants, there's fragments of what's possible on the BSV blockchain in these other blockchain communities. And for example, ETH became very popular because they appealed instantly to developers with that language solidity that gave them a familiar languaging model for how to express their functions in a way that they were familiar with it, similar to JavaScript. When it was just BSV script at the base layer, that was a barrier for some, up and coming developers, because you can have the power of the imagination to invent the new way in which your app or your product is going to revolutionize the world. But if the tools that enable you to create that are unfamiliar to you, you're going to, even if you have another option that is not sufficient or is not complete, just the fact that it's more familiar to you will sometimes be enough to send a developer in that direction. And that's all really changing with this, Mandala, network, upgrade, and the Terranode upgrade, and the ability for the standardization of the BSV libraries, including just recently we announced the Golang library. Again, if you're not on the Discord, highly encourage you to head over and check that out, because there's some documentation now for you to check out in terms of a standard BSV Golang library that is very popular among developers. So really what we're doing is we're giving them, the tools to be going out there and just creating in pure magic the vision that their imagination sees. And a lot of times with that imagination, that some of the developers that are, I think leading the edge in some of these ways for the emergence of Web3, what that's coming down to is it's really coming down to data ownership. We're transitioning away from a model where all of our data was being siloed by massive technocratic companies like, Google and Facebook and all of these companies, and we're shifting away from that to a much more localized form of data ownership and data sharing, in such a way as we can actually monetize that data ourselves. And so the opportunity that's out there, this is something that was only made possible through the ability to have microtransactions be supported, and we're all familiar with the concept of walking into a gas station and wanting to buy a pack of gum, but you have to have a $5 minimum because there's no way to spend only $1 on the pack of gum that you want. Well, those are, we're at that phase of this shift in this technological revolution that BSV blockchain is leading, where those problems, they're not going to exist anymore. And what we're seeing them be replaced by is extreme scalability of permissioned sharing of information, where money can be attached. So that money, we think of this as the process of paying, for things on the internet. It's like a black hole. You send the money in and it never comes out. Money never comes back to you unless you go through all of the structures to set up your own companies, etc. And then there's a range of challenges that you face when that's possible. But now payments, even as small as just a thousandth or a hundredth of a penny, that can flow back to you. Now you don't have to be just a one-way street where money only flows out of you and into this giant technocratic solution that harvests all your data and sells it off to the highest bidder, etc. And now you end up with all of these terrible ads being sent to you, and mailers and flyers, and your information is available to the highest bidder. That can all be changed around. If people want to have access to my data, they can pay for that access to the data. And the what I'm trying to get at here is that the roads that first of all, this is something that's very popular among people. No one wants their information to be harvested and collected by these giant technocratic entities. So right away, we're talking about a format for this shift toward the Web3 model that is extremely popular. It's popular across all age demographics, is popular across all types of, nationalities, etc. This is something that has broad mass appeal. What lacks out there is real, the ability to give people that ease of accessibility that was the problem with the original commercialization of the internet. Once we start to get over those hurdles of access to the developer tools that give the developers the free reign to now market their services as product and app specialists and builders into this new era of a Web3 integrated network where payments can go back and forth in microtransactions, that is the real use case. It is a massive $1 trillion business out there and market out there, and we're right on the precipice of it. We're at the edge. If you've ever been to the Grand Canyon, we are pulling into the parking lot. We, we can't quite see over the edge yet, but we are just getting to that point right now where the landscape is going to completely change. Web 2 is going to be a thing of the past, and we're going to be living in a brand new, deeply interconnected data network community with microtransactions enabled.
And with the Web3 and this new development in the blockchain, before we go into this thing about the wallets, I want to ask you, I had a meeting with a gentleman here in Silicon Valley, the Bay Area, a couple weeks back, and he was a great Bitcoin developer. He had actually been the guy that built the Bitcoin telephone back around 2021. And you ever remember that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So he had invented the Bitcoin telephone, and it was a really cool idea. And then what happened is that when he went and met with investors all around Silicon Valley, they said that it was a scam. And he couldn't get past getting the investors to, look past whatever, Google page one or something. And they said it was a scam, to then overcome that. And he couldn't raise money, to get past it. So I'm just trying to, like, how someone like that overcomes the fake news or whatever that's out there, that to build past that. I mean, and I'm like, I have another friend, same thing. He's got a company that is, I think they're building on Ethereum probably, right? So is it possible that if he goes to investors, he's working with Ethereum and they think it's fine, then he could just take one day and one line of code and put it on Bitcoin with the Scrypt? Is it that easy just to switch to Bitcoin from Ethereum with Scrypt? I mean, is it possible?
Well, I always talk about how easy it is to get a product up and running on BSV. It's so simple. If you just look through some of the documentation that Zhao Wei Lu provides with Scrypt, et cetera, he makes it so simple. 10 lines of code, and you can have a working version of a product. Maybe that's not necessarily including the front end. You spin up a front end, but yeah, you can start to get these products out there. And what I would recommend is that, get the product out there. You're never going to have a finished version of the product on day one. And, while I can understand that there are, challenges that naturally people face among all types of, decisions that they make as a business, there are some extreme advantages to being able to build on BSV, and that is the network's ability to provide tools and functionality for the customer that are just impossible to manufacture in any other way. The ability for the microtransactions, the ability for the immutability and auditability of data, and so but sometimes we as advocates for a network or for a technological revolution, which I really feel that we are just entering into right now, we become really fixated on that, and we love BSV for BSV's sake. Whereas BSV, at the end of the day, it's just it's just a tool that's going to enable a better delivery of a customer experience. So what I would always recommend to entrepreneurs who are facing these same questions is to just go back to the source, go back to your customer. Who are you building this product for? And really make sure that you have their needs at the forefront of what you're working on. And if you have your customers' needs at the forefront of what you're working on, you won't. The technology is just the layer that delivers that value. And the value is just in the same way that a road is just the connection point between me and my commerce that I'm exchanging in my local town, etc. So it's just the rail system. It's just the network layer. But at the end of the day, we need to put something of value on that network layer. And a lot of times, maybe this is a philosophical take that I hope you'll indulge me in taking. But a lot of times we think of it in terms of what we want to give to the world, and we start with this idea of we have something of value, and it's the world's job to figure out that we're smart enough to know what the world should need, or what it should want. But it's really the best way to approach it is actually to flip that in reverse. We don't start with our idea of what the world needs or what it should want. We start with a patient approach of listening, a what you would describe as a consultative sales approach, where you aren't going to your customer and saying, "Hey, I have a red Corvette and it has a convertible top, and that's what you're going to get," because you may be talking to a soccer mom that, as much as that is a perfect fit for someone, it's not a perfect fit for that person. So we always need to go back to that, and really just, this is why I say we're on the precipice. We're talking about Web3 in the same way that if we were driving to the Grand Canyon, using that metaphor again, we'll see signposts on the road that say, "You are now approaching Arizona. You are getting closer to the Grand Canyon," right? We aren't at that. We aren't at the precipice yet. We aren't looking out onto the horizon and seeing this world that will be dramatically changed by this introduction of Web3 technology. But we are, and there are many out there who, are savvy enough to see ahead of the curve, to read the signs, and to know that this is the development that technology is moving. There's going to be no going back once this takes hold, in the same exact way that once the internet took hold, there was absolutely no going back from that. So it's, I guess, it's not to discount or discredit this, developer or this inventor, that is experiencing these troubles. But, imagine this person driving around Silicon Valley in 1989 or 1990 and pitching his ideas that involve the internet. And the door is being slammed in his face a few times because no one's ever heard of the internet, does that mean that he's wrong for seeing that that's the future? Absolutely not. What it means is that he needs to have a better plan for understanding the way in which he can interface with his customers' needs in a way that, again, we put the internet in the background. We don't need to put it on the pedestal and say, "This is why I'm building my business, because I believe that the internet is the future." We want to build a product and a service, and the internet is just the mechanism by which we're delivering that value for our customers. And that's the thing that I think, we oftentimes, as real advocates for technology, we sometimes miss, because we get so fixated on wanting to see the technology succeed on its own merits, and we forget that it's really about the delivery of value, or the capacity for that technology to deliver the end value to the customer.
Yeah, so it sounds like what you're saying is that when we get to a point, or maybe we're getting into the point now, where there's going to be some of these new products, like with the hackathon, that are coming out, that are going to be the consumer, the end user, is going to want to use so bad, they're going to want to be a part of it, that they will just use it, and they don't need to necessarily know, "Oh, I'm using this type of technology." It doesn't really matter, like, to them. Is that what you're saying, or I mean, how close are we to
Absolutely.
that? How close are we to getting to that point?
Yeah, absolutely. And if we just look at maybe cell phone technology as an example, or any type of other technology that came along and revolutionized the way in which we interact and communicate with each other. This is a technology that, no one really understands at the base layer, where what's going on with these towers, and what waves are these communications and the frequencies working on, right? That's all being solved in the back layer. That's all being solved by people like the ones that are going to be presenting at the BSV DevCon, right? And as real, advocates, we get interested in that stuff, but at the end of the day, the consumer, it could care less about it. And no one's really making their evaluation decisions about products and technology that's being served to them based on whether it's using the Amazon Web Services cloud stack technology or the Microsoft Azure cloud stack technology. That's completely superfluous. It's in the background. It's hidden. And that's how it's going to be for the emergence of Web3 products, because at the end of the day, it's really just about what that technology delivers in terms of a customer experience. And this is why, I talked previously about being so excited about the, presentation that Handcash will be giving. But this is why I get so excited about their go-to-market strategy, because I really see them as a team that, they're led first of all by Alex Agut, a brilliant CEO, from Spain, very committed to the concept of individual freedom and liberty being delivered through, the ability to make choices with our money, with our dollars. And, we really removing the restrictions around the way in which that can flow instead of it just flowing, like I said, into these game developers. There actually is an ability for a game economy to emerge among many different participants. And we see this, the popularity of systems like League of Legends and, Call of Duty and Fortnite and Roblox and all of these tools and these gaming platforms. And, they are being built around this concept that is still tied back to the Web 2 legacy payment infrastructure and legacy technology, which is just read and write to a database that is managed by a single entity. And, there's not really a free flow of the game items, etc. Well, you really see the emergence and the start of the change in that with a product like Handcash that now allows for, game assets that can be owned or purchased by one player, and, and it can be have one use case in one game, and it can be taken into an entirely new game, and those same assets can be used in the exact same way to perform different functions and get achieve different results in a different game, because this is really about the interoperability of data that is truly owned by the players. And when we start to see this, we see, movies that sort of talk about this in terms of like, Ready Player One and other movies that really take that concept and expand on it in a science fiction method. But what we're seeing with the emergence of hand cash, especially as it blends into the digital gaming marketplace and ecosystem, we're seeing that, the players themselves have the power. And, this has parallels back down to, the people themselves having power in terms of their own local governance and things like this. And maybe, we are as a species and as a people, and especially as an interconnected network and group of people that are able to more easily exchange information that is valuable, not just because one person says it's valuable, but because it has demonstrated value to the rest of the population. Maybe we're able to see that not just be a technological revolution for humankind, but actually, a almost like a metaphysical or a spiritual revolution for us in terms of having more ownership for, our own actions within our own local environments, etc., and using that as just a stepping stone to build a better world.
Sounds like the concept of data sovereignty.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Data
Yeah.
sovereignty that you're talking about. Really deep subject, but very empowering topic.
Yeah.
Sovereignty over your data.
Yeah, and it really relates itself back to the concept of really having free will in the first place, being someone that can choose to make decisions, and that's a philosophical point that I think, represents a true era and age of maturity for humankind, to be able to say, okay, I have the freedom to act in a totally outlandish way. I can do something totally totally ridiculous, but it's my ability to have the freedom to do that and to choose not to choose to, to make, wiser choices. If we live under otherwise, if we live under authoritarian rule and we don't have the ability to take our free actions effectively, what it's really saying is that, we're just on the ends of these large puppet strings, and maybe we can't see them. So the assumption is that, we're free, when in actuality, the freedom that we experience is only the degree to which that freedom is offered to us. It's an illusion of freedom by those circumstances, and it doesn't have to necessarily be a group of people or even a person that is necessarily impacting me, but maybe it's gravity, for example, or whatever it is, the laws of the universe. And so, I have this idea that I could have a free choice, but in actuality, I'm just carrying out the instructions that were set out at the onset of time. And the problem is that they're really, you know, uh, you can't actually create this sense of accountability. Now, if I go out and I commit a wrong or I commit a crime, even if it's not a horrific crime, but let's just say I push someone over and they get hurt or something like that. Am I really accountable for that action? It was the universe, that big bang that sent me on this path, and millions and millions and billions of years later ended up me pushing you, right? So my accountability has been removed, and of course, when you carry that to its logical ends, it just means that there's no accountability, and with no accountability, what action, what incentive do people have to actually go out there and build? And what we were talking about before was these developers to invent the future that they want to see in the world and to apply the knowledge that they have as developers to create that reality. you know um that's something that relies on the ability for there to be free will. So it's something that does lend itself to a philosophical bent, and I think it does represent the this emergence of the Web3 technology, because it is about that data sovereignty at the end of the day.
So, now if we're on the concept of data sovereignty, let's talk a little bit about, yesterday I had a video with an interview with Crypto Rick, and he mentioned how some of the wallets, they provide a 12-word seed phrase, and that, let's say, for example, I'm a new user, and I want to get I want to get in and get a wallet, and I get my 12-word seed phrase, and I'm good to go, and I take that and I figure that I put that away and it's safe. But then he mentioned yesterday that, if a guy only has that, he actually doesn't have the master private key, and he may lose all his Bitcoin one day from an act of God. Let's say, an act of God happens and something happens. The internet is down. He can't get it, and so I'm wondering, what can you please address that on a technical aspect? I mean, how does that work? Let's say hand cash. You mentioned hand cash. A lot of people use that. I think they only have the 12-word seed phrase as far as I remember, and at least for basic user that I use. And so how can a person take some data sovereignty with something like a hand cash,
Yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely. So yeah, hand cash, it doesn't give you your 12-word seed phrase, and that's actually one of the things that I find to be the most fascinating, because and there are purists like Crypto Rick, who I love his sessions with you, and and but someone like Crypto Rick that wants the private key to the funds, et cetera, that may not be every single person, and it probably wouldn't be the commercial application for once this goes mainstream. There may not be 300 million people that want to have the private keys, because again, a private key, first of all, it gets a little bit out of my depth in terms of my understanding, but we have what's called just the private key itself. But then what we think of when we think of a private key, typically I think we're thinking of the hash of the private key. So we think of that private key as being, a string of, maybe 36 different bytes, I believe, and it translates to 64 different characters. And for those that are looking for a parallel in their mind for this, if you've ever been inside an image editing software or something like this, we're all familiar with seeing that color wheel, and then we click on the color that we want, let's say red or green or whatever, and then we can see the hashtag, and then there's 6 digits, 0, 4, letter A, letter B, and then 1, 3 or something like this, right? So those digits actually represent the color, because the color has a hexadecimal output. So, you can describe it to your friend and you can say it's orange, but if you describe it to a computer, the computer doesn't know what orange is, right? So you have to tell the computer it's 0314AB, et cetera. Well, similarly, a private key has, it's a massive string of digits. And I think maybe even it's a 256-bit string, which are binary, either 0 or 1. 256 times. I'm not 100% sure on that because I defer to some of my technical experts on that stuff. But, just like any binary string that's 256 bits long, you can compose a, a 64 or really a 32 byte string that means the exact same thing. And, another way to express it is the word hello, has an equivalent in Spanish, hola, and you're saying different things, but it means the same thing. Well, similarly, you have this binary string, and then you have a different way of expressing that same output, and you express it as a 64 or 32 byte string, etc. Anyway, but I don't even think that 32 byte string, I think that's the hash. It's not actually the private key. So to have your private key, it is something that's a little bit deeper on the layer, and there are certainly people that want to be able to have that. There's of course, and there's reasons to want that. There's of course a lot of people that really want to have an off-grid, ability to survive on the land, and I encourage and love when people go to those ends and extremes to make sure that, in the event of some sort of catastrophe or some sort of, horrific event or something like this, maybe you have a repository, maybe you've built a shelter or a bunker with lots of seeds, that you've managed to save. And so, you're able to, everybody may laugh at people and individuals like that when everything's going swimmingly, right? And it's only after the S hits the fan, that everybody says, hey, that guy was pretty smart for having a stockpile of seeds. You know what I mean? Turns out food's really important, and not just having it, but having access to creating it or making it on our own, as opposed to just relying on my grocery store's truck to drop it off right on my front door. But the point is that although there is, there's a valid reason and an interest for people to have all the access to that information, it's not necessarily the everyday person. And we struggle with that all the time as we're trying to educate and teach people about more and more ways that they can take ownership of their own sovereignty and stuff. And what you find is that a lot of times people don't necessarily want to take ownership of it, right? They're happy being a little leaf that's floating along on the pond. And it's to each their own. But yeah, what I would say about the deriving of the private key, if I could use an analogy, is that, in the exact same way that if we're just sitting down in geometry class or something like that, and let's just say that we're looking at a triangle, right? And we all know that a triangle, it's made out of 180 degrees. So we can use, if we only have information about 2 of those degrees, we can use that information to derive the information about the last degree. So if I know that the top degree is 60 degrees, and I know that the left degree is 60 degrees, then I can deduce that the right degree is also 60 degrees. Now, that information wasn't provided to me, I deduced it. Same thing with the private key being derived from the 12-word seed phrase. You can think of the seed phrase as being a triangle, and the 12 words are like the 2 angles whose information we have access to. And it's through the use of those 12 words that we derive the last piece of information that's not present. If you have the tools and the technology to be able to devise that, then you can devise it at any point. You can devise it today, and you'll get the same result. You can devise it. You can find that information 100 years from now or 1,000 years from now. It's going to be the same result. In the same way that a geometer in the year 3000 BC deducing that the last angle is 60 degrees, it doesn't matter whether you deduce that today or 1,000 years from now. The answer will remain the same because it is information that is factually derived from other information.
All right. So let's say that someone has so it sounds like, it's a technological thing. And so basically there's tools out there where people could, there may be a tool out there where if somebody, I guess my question is like, if someone had, wanted to get those master private keys, do they have to transfer the Bitcoin SV into another wallet or Bitcoin into another place and then go out and do this technical thing? Or can it just be done through some sort of engineering where it's
Yeah.
at?
Yeah, it's a really, interesting question because again, this technology that we now have access to, it's unlike anything that's ever existed before. There's not really a parallel for this. But yeah, you can, you know, in in essence, if you think about this, the the bitcoins that you have, they, even if you store let's just say that you have an app on your phone that gives you the ability to spend those funds. Those funds aren't necessarily stored on the phone. And similarly, the phone just gives you a really easy way to spend them. It works a little bit different to physical cash because, of course, the physical cash in your pocket, that you were, if you walk out of the house with the wrong pants on and you didn't bring the pants that had the cash in the pocket, you can't tell the clerk, hey, I know the 12 words for my cash. I'll just tell them to you and spend them, right? You have to hand them over, right? Bitcoin's a little bit different than that because in a sense, if you think about it, like, okay, I don't know if you've ever seen I'm trying to think of which movie it was, the movie Labyrinth, maybe with David Bowie, where, they're walking down a hallway, and there's countless doors, okay? And let's just say that you open up the door and, when you open it up, you see another endless hallway, and you keep walking down the hallway, you open another door, you see an endless hallway, right? The doors don't change, but imagine you have a magic knock, and you knock on the door a certain way, and when you open it, now that's your living room. Okay. And it's not because the door itself was the door to your living room. It has to do with the way that you knocked. And this is the only parallel that I could think of that explains this. Because, for example, let's just say that you knock on the door a certain way and you go into your living room, you come back out, you're in the endless hallway, and maybe, you take a walk down the hallway, and you get lost. You sort of, forget which way you're going, etc. All you have to remember, you don't have to remember which door led you back to your living room. You just have to remember the secret knock. And so the seed phrase is like the secret knock. If you can remember that secret knock, you can open the door to access your funds at any time. It's just sort of like the Matrix. The Matrix also sort of tells a story about this as well. If you remember, even in the original Matrix, they open the doors and that can get them into to other, regions of the Matrix, et cetera, right? It's almost like a parallel for this emergent technology. And that's also where the benefit and the value is, because now you have this new opportunity for users to have that data sovereignty by remembering their secret knock, but also there's a impetus for teaching people about this type of technology, about this type of emergent network. And you have to use parallels that don't exactly make sense for them, in the same way that when the automobile first came out, you had to use the analogy of the horsepower and say, oh, it has the ability of 20 horses, when in actuality it's a insufficient metaphor, just in the way that this metaphor that I'm using is insufficient. But yeah, what I could say about what Crypto Rick is saying is that, uh, he's talking about, instead of a 12 word knock or something like this, which technically could have collisions, which is what happens when you compress information. There's options that same expansive version of the information can get compressed down into a version of the information that is insufficient in terms of its reductionism, because we're talking about limitless information and a 256-bit string in which that information can be expressed. And although 256 bits is massive, right, it's not limitless. So there's always going to be naturally some piece of data or information that translates to the same secret knock. You see, so if someone had that secret knock, maybe they could enter your living room and they wouldn't even be doing it on purpose. It's extremely unlikely and extremely rare, but it is, it's possible.
So yeah, I guess that's the rare situation. So a guy is for the people that are the guy that's wanting to, that's worried about an act of God or preparing for an act of God of some kind. And he wants to be able to cold storage his stuff in and transact off the grid. I got friends like that right now that I love dearly. They are so convinced on that. I could never talk them out of it. That's just the way they believe. And they believe that for a long way. I don't know what people call them crazy, but for those type of people that want to have a cold storage, they don't want the 12 words. They want the 256-bit encryption. How can they do it?
Yeah, well, it's a great point of emphasis too, because at the end of the day, the 256-bit or the private key, I'm not even 100% sure what what amount of bits are in there. So feel free to correct me in the comments, because I always love learning. So if I'm wrong, let me know. But we can think of that secret knock, the 12-word secret knock phrase that we were talking about, as like a shortcut or a code
Yeah, it's a
for the
shorter
private
version
key.
of that.
Right,
Yeah.
right. It's a shorter version. And if you interface with any type of app or technology that knows what that shortcut refers to, and it's widely known, then they'll always be able to translate that for you back into your private key. But in Crypto Rick's scenario, what if that information is eliminated or something, or maybe it's a vested interest that people have for that not information not to be known or widely distributed or widely disseminated. So now what you're stuck with is this secret knock. And again, we're in our little hallway, we knock on it and we open it up and it's another endless hallway, right? Because at the end of the day, when we were actually knocking, we were relying on this layer that's at the threshold of the door to know that knock actually means something else, right? Whereas if we train ourselves to know what the knock is supposed to mean, then we become the entity at the threshold. We don't rely on any other entity to translate our knock for us. And so how would they do that? And the last thing I'll say about this is just that, you use the private key, of course, to spend the funds. So if you're not intending or don't plan to spend the funds, then you don't need it. Of course, that's what most people intend to do, is to spend the funds. But when you are broadcasting that message, you do need to be signing with the private key. And that's how the rest of the network knows that you are entitled to spend those funds. And so, what Crypto Rick is saying is that when you sign with the private key, you actually sign with the private key. You don't sign with the 12 words. So so how exactly that those words are deduced from how the private key is deduced from the words, that would be a question for our technical experts. But I do believe that there's documentation online about how to draw how to extract the private key from the 12 words. And I know I've done a little bit of it. It's not my area of expertise, so I hesitate to comment on it. But, for example, on the One Sat Ordinals website, I have gone in there and extracted my private key and, and been able to look at that. So, I have a little bit of experience with it, but, in terms of giving educative information about exactly how to do it, I would encourage people to head to our Discord, discord.gg/BSV. I will connect you with a technical expert that's able to walk you through exactly how you do that. And, again, of course, you can always use an intermediary or a data layer to do it. But if you do want to do it on your own, just even as an exercise, sometimes it's fun to do it, even if you only put a couple pennies in the account that you're trying to extract, and see if you can do it. And, it's an educative experience for people to actually get that data sovereignty and really to understand fundamentally at the most basic levels, really what's involved with it.
Yeah, it's super cool. Thanks, Brett. So it sounds like people could go to the Discord channel and you'll put them in touch with a technical expert. So I may want to do that myself just for the education and learning about this, how the heck it's gonna work. So I
Let's
probably
do it.
I'll see you there. So all right, we gotta we're coming up on our deadline here, the last minute here. So any last we talked about the London blockchain convention Sunday. Dev conference is on Monday. That's the 20th,
Yes.
right? All
Yes.
day. Okay, and then then the hackathon results will be on another video. So any last words before we wrap up?
Well, I want to thank everyone. for the feedback that we've been getting on these videos. It's awesome to see the active community out there, giving us some insights, giving us the feedback about the content that we're putting out there. Hopefully you found it enjoyable. And yeah, if you are planning on attending, I do encourage you to just reach out to me directly. I'm very easy to contact. You can contact me on the Discord. I'm Manifestable. You can contact me on Twitter at Manifestable, and also on email, brett.banfe@bsvblockchain.org. Happy to help you get signed up for the DevCon and, help walk you through where our after party is. These are events that I really look forward to. As I was saying, my first blockchain conference was the CoinGeek in Zurich. And, when I first walked into that event, these were people that I had, really looked up to, had learned so much from. People like Kurt Wooker Jr. and Connor Murray and, Degan and all these people that, I'm finding myself just, in a room having some cocktails with them. And like, it's a surreal experience. You meet these people who, I'm sure a lot of people can relate. We get so interested by this technology, but a lot of times it's really, there's a gap in the knowledge about it, with the rest of the world. So, a lot of times you feel like sort of like a fish out of water or something like that. And being at these events, it's something that we experienced when we were in San Francisco together. You just have, it's this amazing energy where all of these people, when they come together, they share their insights, and they're not always agreeing about everything, but everyone is purely motivated by the same dream, the same vision, and seeing this Web3 world emerging, taking over the entire globe. We all see it coming, and so it's an infectious experience. I encourage you to come on out to it, and I really encourage you, especially, to come to the DevCon day, because there's going to be a lot less, a lot smaller attendance for that event. So you really get to revel in that one-on-one time with the industry experts.
Right on, Brett. I love it. Well, I'll get this out there. Thank you for joining in, and we'll see you again next time on the for update on the Scrypt Hackathon. All right,
And where will you see me?
at the top, baby. All right, we'll see you there. Thanks, Brett.